Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we will start off with our major top stories and reports. The European Union said is satisfied with Ethiopia's practices and unilateral actions with regards to the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. The statements were made during talks with the Egyptian side. More in the following report.
Cairo and the EU stressed strategic ties in light of joint challenges on the regional and international levels. The statements were made in Brussels during talks between Shukri and EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell. The talks were held to discuss means of activating existing mechanisms within the European-Egyptian cooperation deal. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam topped the agenda of the meeting. Shukri said the international community should live up to its responsibilities and send clear messages to the Ethiopian side of the necessity of changing its current approach. He said the EU may take measures that affirm its dissatisfaction with the Ethiopian practices over the GERD. During the talks, Shukri presented Cairo's vision, which he said aims at regaining stability and achieving prosperity for the peoples of the region. Atop the agenda of the talks were also developments in Libya and the Palestinian cause. Shukri said the EU is ready to expand cooperation and present its expertise and suggestion to solve the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam crisis. He said the EU commissioner stressed the fairness of the Egyptian status and the rights of the Egyptians in the River Nile waters. He said the EU statement called on Addis Ababa to end its unilateral decisions. Shukri also said Egypt and Sudan are coordinating to make the suitable decision to return to the negotiating table. He said the EU has vowed to present new ideas for the negotiations to end the GERD crisis.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're glad to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Ali Al-Hefny, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Ambassador Hefny, how do you weigh the significance of Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri's visit to Brussels?
Well, it is an important visit for several reasons. First, it is a visit to a state with which Egypt maintains a good relationship. I'm talking about Belgium, the Belgian government, the officials within that government, and it gives the opportunity to exchange views with regard to the issues of common interest pertaining to the regional or even international issues. Now, the other thing is to ensure the follow-up with regard to the ongoing bilateral relations with this country and our interest in attracting more Belgian investments to Egypt at this important period that we are witnessing in Egypt. The other thing is to also have important discussions with the different officials at the European Council, at the European Commission. So to be received by the President of the European Council to transmit a message from President Sisi to discuss about the current relations that exist between Egypt and the European Council, and of course the European Commission, meeting the different officials at the European Commission, and to discuss about the ongoing process pertaining to the association agreement that binds the two sides, but also to discuss about things of common interest. Here, indeed, comes the issue of the Renaissance Dam, Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, at the time when the Security Council is discussing about the development of that conflict that exists between Ethiopia from one side and Egypt and Sudan from the other side. And of course, the visit of Brussels gives the opportunity to maintain our contacts with the different officials at the NATO, with which Egypt have a good relationship based on the necessity and the interest of both sides to use such opportunities in such way that we could exchange views pertaining to security issues, whether at our region's level or worldwide.
Right. Well, during his talks in Brussels, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and also Borrell described Egyptian-European ties as important and strategic in light of the common challenges facing both sides. What are these challenges? What are these common challenges facing both sides?
Challenges are related to the security in our region, security in the Horn of Africa and East Africa, the security in the Mediterranean, fighting together terrorism, coordinating our steps and our policies and our strategies with regard to the world fight against terrorism and the organized crime, cross-border crimes. Of course, the status of affairs in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria, in the countries that are faced with great challenges for the time being and are affecting the overall situation when it comes to security and our national security as countries, be it Europeans or Arabs or Africans.
Yes.
Now, the other issue also is the illegal immigration. You know,
yes.
we have a very good score when it comes to encircling terrorism within Egypt and also putting an end to the illegal immigration through our shores and the Mediterranean, you know, towards Europe. So, in fact, so many things that are of common interest that are discussed when such an opportunity is provided.
Yes, sir, the Grand Ethiopian Dam and Libya were also discussed during the meetings in Brussels. How would you describe Europe's position as a player and influencer in the African continent?
Well, the role of Europe is very important. When it comes to the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the European Union, along with the United Nations and the United States, they were observers all along the negotiation process that Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia were engaged in under the supervision of the African Union all along this last year. And even before at certain phases. Of course, when it comes to Libya, we have here to remember the Berlin I and Berlin II conferences and the role played by Germany and the Europeans with regard to our collective efforts to recover stability, peace and security within that country, which is not just important for Egypt being to our western door, but also as far as the overall situation in the Mediterranean. And of course those countries, European countries, they have interests. They had, they still have, and they are willing to intensify their investments and their interest in that country. So we have the same agenda to help Libyans to come together and to bring back stability to this country. The date of December next for the presidential and general elections in Libya is very important. So we are pushing together that agenda forward, and we are trying to help the Libyans to settle their differences in such a way that we could have those elections at the proper time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, Ambassador Hefny, the meeting also discussed means of activating existing mechanisms within the European-Egyptian cooperation deal. How important is activating this mechanism for both parties, for both sides?
Our relations with Europe are old, and the association agreement that we have signed is of a great benefit for both sides. The two sides, they have interest in maintaining and developing that process and pushing forward our bilateral cooperation. We need the Europeans in so many ways, and they are indeed involved in and through their different institutions like the European Investments Bank, and others. There is an important amount of European investments in Egypt, many projects that are they have been realized and are still being realized in Egypt with the help of our European partners. So it's the story of a partnership between the two sides that is mutually beneficial.
Yes, well, I would like to thank you very much, Ambassador Ali Al-Hefny, former assistant to the foreign minister. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, moving on with our special reports, the UN Rights Council on Tuesday approved a resolution expressing deep concern about abuses in Ethiopia's northern region of Tigray and calling for the swift withdrawal of Eritrean troops, which it said were exacerbating the conflict. More in this report.
The UN Human Rights Council called on Tuesday for an immediate end to all violations in Ethiopia's conflict-torn Tigray region and for Eritrean troops to quickly withdraw in a verifiable manner. Clashes erupted in Tigray 8 months ago between central government forces and the region's ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF). The conflict has forced nearly 2 million people to flee their homes and driven around 400,000 people into famine. The head of the EU delegation to the United Nations in Geneva, which brought the resolution, said what is happening in the Tigray region in Ethiopia is appalling. He said it is imperative for the Human Rights Council to be able to address this situation. The EU text passed in a vote with 20 countries in favor, 14 against, and 13 abstentions. Council member Eritrea voted against the resolution.
Welcome back, and still with our special reports, protesters clashed with police in several areas of South Africa and looters ransacked shopping malls on Tuesday as frustrations over poverty and inequality boiled over into the country's worst unrest in years. More details.
South African security officials said the government was working to ensure violence and looting that erupted in the country did not spread further, but they stopped short of declaring a state of emergency. The police minister said no amount of unhappiness or personal circumstances from the people gives the right to anyone to loot, vandalize, and do as they please and break the law. The violence was triggered by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma, as his supporters took to the streets last week, but the situation has evolved into an outpouring of anger over persistent poverty and inequality in South Africa, 27 years after the end of apartheid. The economic impact of COVID-19 restrictions has exacerbated the problems. Troops moved into flashpoints on Tuesday as outnumbered police seemed helpless to prevent attacks and looting on businesses in Zuma's home province, KwaZulu-Natal, and in Gauteng province, where the country's biggest city, Johannesburg, is located. Up to 30 people have been killed during the unrest.
Well, dear viewers, that brings us to the end of this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.